Billionaire mocks Waitress in German. Her reply leaves him speechless. The air in La Flèche Sauvage was always thick with the scent of money and rare truffles, a heady, intoxicating mix that served as the perfect backdrop for the city's elite. Tonight, the atmosphere was particularly charged, thanks to the arrival of Klaus Richter. Richter was a name synonymous with ruthless efficiency and staggering wealth. A man who had built the global logistics empire from a single, inherited trucking firm in Bavaria. He was a creature of habit and impeccable taste, the man in a corner table with a view of the city lights, and a service that bordered on the obsequious. Elara, the waitress assigned to his table, was the antithesis of the room's opulence. Her uniform was crisp, her movements economical, and her face a mask of professional neutrality that belied the sharp, observant mind beneath. She had been working double shifts for the last 6 months, saving every spare cent, a necessity driven by a goal Richter would never comprehend. She approached his table with the practiced ease of someone who had navigated the delicate social currents of fine dining for years. Richter, a man whose tailored suit probably cost more than Elara's annual rent, didn't look up from his phone as she reached his side. He simply held up a hand, a gesture of dismissal that she ignored. When he finally lowered the device, his eyes, the color of cold steel, swept over her with a dismissive glance that lingered just long enough to be insulting. He didn't ask for a menu. He didn't need one. He knew the offerings of every high-end establishment in every major city. "Bring me the Saisonge Mullerin," he commanded, his voice a low, resonant baritone that carried a distinct, clipped German accent, even when speaking English. And before that, the Consomme double. He paused, tapping a manicured finger on the white linen. For the wine, a bottle of the 98 Chateau Haut-Brion, decanted, of course, and ensure the sommelier knows to use the proper, wide-bottomed decanter, not one of those narrow, modern monstrosities. Elara nodded, her pen poised over her pad. "Certainly, Herr Richter. I will inform the sommelier immediately." Her English was flawless, unaccented, and utterly devoid of emotion. Richter leaned back, a faint, unpleasant smile playing on his lips. He was clearly enjoying the performance of his own power. He had a reputation for testing the staff, pushing them to their limits, and then leaving a meager tip as a final, cruel flourish. He found it amusing, a small, petty way to exert control in a world where he already controlled so much. He then switched to German, a language he rarely used in public unless he wished to exclude or belittle those around him. He spoke quickly, his words a rapid-fire cascade of sophisticated, idiomatic German that was far beyond the typical phrases a server might pick up. Vergülein, stellen Sie sicher, dass der Fisch nicht gekocht ist. Ich habe keine Lust auf ihn weiter enttäuschen. Why die les Woche ist es erstaunlich. Why in einem Haus dieser Klasse die Eingestellten so wenig von den Grundlagen verstehen. Man soll meinen, sie ten wenigstens die Temperatur eines Ofens kontrollieren. He had just said, and, "Miss, make sure the fish is not overcooked. I have no desire for another disappointment, like last week." It is astonishing how in a house of this class, the employees understand so little of the basics. One would think they could at least control the temperature of an oven. He finished with a slight, arrogant tilt of his head, his eyes fixed on hers, waiting for the inevitable blank stare, the confused nod, the hurried retreat to find a manager. He expected her to be flustered, perhaps even a little intimidated by the sheer volume and complexity of the foreign language. It was a power play, a way of reminding her of the chasm between his world and hers. But Elara did not flinch. Her expression remained perfectly calm, her eyes steady. She didn't even pause. She simply finished writing the wine order, closed her pad, and then, in a German that was not only fluent, but carried the precise, almost musical lilt of a native speaker from the Rhine-Main region, she replied, "Selbstverständlich, Herr Richter. Ich werde die Kuchpersonlich umweisen, den Fisch Süßwein bei exakt 58 Grad Celsius zuzubereiten. Die perfekt Textur zu gewährleisten, bezüglich der Grundlagen, die Sie erwähnten, die Enttäuschung der letzten Woche resultiert aus einer Überhitzung der Tellers. Nicht der Fisch selbst, der Pass war zu lang unter der Wärmelampe. Ich habe das Problem bereits mit dem Chef die Rang besprochen und versichert, dass ich heute Abend nicht wieder vorkomme." The silence that followed was so profound, it seemed to absorb the low murmur of the restaurant. Richter's jaw, which had been set in a posture of smug superiority, went slack. His eyes, usually so sharp and predatory, were wide with genuine shock. Elara had not only understood every word of his rapid, mocking German, but she had also corrected his assessment of the previous week's culinary error. With technical precision, her reply translated to, "Of course, Herr Richter. I will personally instruct the kitchen to prepare the fish sous vide at exactly 58 degrees Celsius, to ensure the perfect texture." And regarding the basics you mentioned, last week's disappointment resulted from the plate being overheated, not the fish itself. The pass was too long under the heat lamp. I'd have already discussed the issue with the chef de rang, and ensured it will not happen again tonight. The use of chef de rang, the French term for the head waiter, and the technical detail of sous vide at 58 degrees Celsius, were not the vocabulary of a struggling student or a casual learner. It was the language of someone who had lived and breathed the culture, someone who understood the intricate hierarchy and technical jargon of a high-end European kitchen. Richter stared at her, his mind racing to reconcile the image of the humble waitress with the woman who had just spoken. He had assumed her to be a local girl, perhaps a college dropout, certainly someone who had never ventured beyond the confines of her own country, let alone mastered a language as complex as German. Elara waited, her hands clasped neatly in front of her, the picture of professional patience. The moment stretched, thick with unspoken questions and the sudden, humiliating reversal of power. Richter, the man who prided himself on his ability to read people and situations, had been completely, utterly wrong-footed. Finally, he managed a choked, almost inaudible sound. He cleared his throat, his face flushing a deep, angry red. He tried to recover, to find a cutting remark, a way to regain the upper hand. But his mind was a blank. The arrogance had evaporated, replaced by a raw, exposed vulnerability. Elara, seeing her opening, delivered the final, quiet blow, still in German, her voice softer now, but carrying the weight of a lifetime of quiet struggle. Ich hoffe, Herr Richter, dass der Hüte in Ihren hohen Wortungen entspricht. Ich habe in Frankfurt am Main studiert, bever ich mein Family hier begleiten must. Ich verstehe nicht nur die Grundlagen der Gastronomie, sondern auch die Feinheiten der deutschen Höflichkeit. Und ich weiß, das war Klasse sich nicht nur im Preis des Weins, sondern auch im Respekt gegenüber dem Personal Zeit. This was her reply, the one that left him truly speechless. I hope, Herr Richter, that this evening meets your high expectations. I studied in Frankfurt am Main before I had to accompany my family here. I understand not only the basics of gastronomy, but also the subtleties of German courtesy. And I know that true class is demonstrated not only in the price of the wine, but also in the respect shown to the staff. She didn't wait for a response. She simply turned, her back straight, and walked away, leaving the billionaire alone with his expensive wine and the sudden, crushing realization of his own boorishness. The message was clear. His wealth could buy the wine, but it could not buy the right to be cruel, and it certainly could not buy the knowledge she possessed. The mockery had been returned, not with anger, but with quiet, devastating truth. Richter sat motionless for a long time, the menu still untouched, the glow of the city lights reflecting in his unseeing eyes. He was not merely embarrassed. He was intellectually and morally defeated. He had sought to diminish her, and in doing so, he had only succeeded in revealing his own smallness. The taste of the finest wine in the world would be bitter tonight. Elara, meanwhile, was already at the kitchen pass, speaking to the chef. The soul, sous vide, 58 degrees. And chef, she added, her voice low, a fresh, room temperature plate for the final presentation. No heat lamp. She didn't mention the exchange, didn't need to. Her professionalism was her shield and her sword. The night was long, and the tips were still to be earned, but for a brief, satisfying moment, the scales of justice in the gilded cage of Lafleur Sauvage had been perfectly balanced. The story of the quiet waitress and the humble billionaire would be the true special of the evening, a dish served cold and unforgettable.